What vegetables or leftovers do you have in the refrigerator? They are absolutely perfect to make today's dish. We are making a butternut squash, lardons or bacon, and leeks quiche. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. If this is your first time tuning in, let us know you're out there by giving us a big thumbs up below, and then hit that subscribe button to make sure you never miss a video. Now, let's start cooking. So let's take a look at our ingredients for this amazing butternut squash, lardons or bacon, and leeks quiche. Well, the main attraction, of course, the star of the show, is a beautiful butternut squash, which we're going to peel and dice, and then we will partially cook it. And the rest of the filling is our lardons or our bacon. And if you can't get lardons, you can always buy thick bacon and then cut it crosswise into 1/4-inch strips, and that basically will serve that purpose. We've got about 200 grams of that, and then we've got a couple of cloves of garlic, and then we've got our leeks. I've got basically 2 leeks, the white part, and then I've got the part of the leek where it's starting to turn green. We're going to use that for the top of the quiche, but we're going to chop up the rest of the quiche, or the rest of the leeks, and then we will slice this part for the top of the quiche. And then the rest of our filling is our liquid filling. We've got 250 mils of milk, 250 milliliters of heavy cream, or 1 cup in 1 cup. We've got 5 eggs, and then we're going to add, and cheese is optional, but you can add goat's cheese, you can add whatever kind of soft grated cheese that you'd like. And today we've got a wonderful soft cheese that was brought to us by a friend from Spain that we're going to be using. And then we're going to season it with, of course, your regular salt and pepper, but we're going to do some freshly grated nutmeg and just a little bit, about a 1/2 teaspoon of, this is called piment espelette, or it's similar to cayenne pepper in the States. If you can't get piment espelette, you can get cayenne pepper, and that'll do the trick. And today for this quiche, we are using a 10-inch pan, and I am using a gluten-free, pre-made crust. But if you want to know how to make your own pastry crust, just check above, and we've got a video that will show you step by step how to make a fantastic crust for your tarts and quiches and pies. And that's it for our ingredients. So we've got some egg yolk that we will use once we're going to blind bake our crust, which means we're going to partially bake the crust before we put the ingredients in. And once we take it out of the oven, we will then do a little egg wash over it, and we'll put it back in the oven for a few minutes just to get it sealed. And those will be our ingredients. Let's get going. First things first, let's get our crust going. So, as I said, this is a pre-made crust, but it's just like if you were to make it at home. And what we're going to do is we're going to roll our crust out, and I'm just putting down a little corn flour to keep it from sticking to the surface there. And generally when you get a pre-made crust, they can stand a little bit of extra rolling just to get them supple and to get them to the thickness that you want. Sometimes they come a little bit thicker than you want them. And I like to go ahead and put a little bit of, in this case I'm using corn flour. If you're using regular flour, same thing, just put a little bit of that on your hands. And then we'll just roll this a little bit more. And then how I like to do it, I like to flip it and do a 1/4 turn and roll it again. And same thing. And what we're trying to do at this point is make sure that our crust is going to be big enough to go outside the pan. It's going to go down inside the pan, but then it's going to lean over, come over a little bit. So that's what we'll do with that. And what we'll do is now we'll just roll it up onto our rolling pin. Let's bring our pan there. And these crusts have plenty of butter in them, so there's really no need to butter your pie pan or your tart pan. All right, so we now then will just gently put the crust down into the pan. Okay. And now what I like to do is trim the crust just a little bit. We're going to leave about an inch hanging over, ½ inch, something like that, hanging over, and I'll show you what we'll do with that. And you don't have to take a ruler to this or anything. You don't have to be that precise with it, because we're going to be turning this under, and you won't see any of the uneven parts. Okay, and now what we'll do is we'll take that, and I like to turn it underneath, just flip it underneath, and I'm pressing it into the side as we go, just to establish an edge. And we just do that all the way around. It's always good to leave a little extra on top, because as you cook this, of course, there's butter in this crust, so it's going to shrink down a little bit. So that should do it. Now what we'll do is we are going to, what I like to do is just take a fork or a knife, and we'll just put some holes in here just to keep it from bubbling up too much. And we're just gonna cover the bowl with some parchment paper, and we'll just put it right down in the center there. And now we're just going to fill it with baking beans, or if you've got, any dried beans will do, anything that you want to use. And I should have mentioned this before, we have preheated our oven to 205 Celsius or 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And now we're just going to place this in the oven for about 15 minutes until we see the edges start turning brown. And we've gone ahead and placed our tart pan inside of another pan, which is what we'll use to bake it. While our crust is blind baking, let's go ahead and break down our butternut squash. So several different ways you can do this, but I think the easiest way to peel this squash is just with a vegetable peeler. And you could just go straight down just like this. You can lay it down and come back towards yourself. Whichever way you find to be the easiest. It does help to have a good quality peeler when doing this. And butternut squash skin is not terrible for you. If you get a little bit of it in your dish, it's not going to hurt you. You can eat it. And then when you get to the edges, just come around like that. We'll get rid of the first bunch, and the same thing on the end. Kind of like doing an apple. Okay, very good. And now you can, cut your squash lengthwise. In this case, I think we're going to cut it crosswise because the seeds are in this larger area down here. So we're just going to make a slice here using a very sharp knife. And now at this point, I'm putting the tip of my knife on the cutting board, and I'm just going to pivot there and come back just like that. And I just barely missed it, but I can feel where the seeds are. So here, let's do this. We're just going to cut it in half. Just like that. And now we'll just take a spoon and take the seeds out. Okay, now we've got the seeds out, and we've got a flat side. So now we just put that down, and we are going to cut these in about 2 centimeters square, which is about 3/4 of an inch, cubes. You can see how nice it is to have a bottom of a square edge on the bottom. And now we'll just come across just like that. Same thing. And we're not worried about these being exact, of course, because they're going to be inside of a quiche. We just want them similar sizes so they cook at the same rate. And we'll just continue on until we finish cubing our squash. So with our little small portion of leek that we have here, what we're going to do is just cut it in half, and then we're just going to cut it into strips, just like that, and like that. Not quite julienne. And these will be just used on the top of our quiche as a finishing element. While our crust is blind baking in the oven, we can actually start cooking our elements for the quiche. So we're just going to add a little bit of oil to our pan, and we're just going to let that oil heat up just a little bit, and we will then place our lardons in. And we basically are just going to render the fat from the lardons, and of course it will leave some of its fat in the pan as well. And then we will be cooking our butternut squash in that oil. Okay, our crust is where we want it. Very nice. It's nice and brown. And what we'll do now is just take our baking beans out. Very good. And just put those somewhere to cool. And now you're wondering what we had that egg for. And this is what we'll use it for. We just do a little bit of an egg wash over our crust. And this will just help to seal it and keep anything from seeping through while we bake our quiche. And it's a really, really pretty color. Although we won't see this color once we bake our quiche. A little bit on the edge. And we'll just put this back in the oven for about 5 minutes. Our lardons are rendering their fat, and we don't want to cook these until they're crispy. We're just really wanting to release the fat, and they'll be pretty much done, but we're not cooking them all the way. We're just kind of partially cooking them to render the fat. All right, in the meantime, let's go ahead and prepare we've got our garlic, and in this case, normally I like to mince my own garlic by hand, but in this case, we can just do it with the garlic press, because it's just going to be for flavoring our quiche. Sure makes easy work of garlic. All right, in the meantime, we have rinsed our leeks, and they are draining, or they have drained, and those will be ready to go in our pan. Our lardons have rendered their fat, and this is what they look like now. Just starting to brown just a little bit. And so now what we'll do is we'll take them out, and we're just going to reserve them until we get ready to put our quiche together. And we can now add our butternut squash into the pot. So we are going to cook this butternut squash, and I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit because we don't want to burn anything, but we're just going to cook it until it's starting to soften. We want to get everything, coated with the oil, and then we're just going to leave it and let it cook for a second. But we want to get a little bit of caramelization on that squash. In the meantime, our crust should be ready to come out. So it's definitely ready to come out. And don't worry, like I said, it's puff pastry. It's going to calm down, so it'll be just fine. We've let our squash sit here and just cook for probably about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. And now we're getting just a little bit of color on the back side, which is what we want. And now, what I think we'll do is cover this, and we'll just let this cook for about 7 minutes or so. Our butternut squash is probably 3/4 cooked, which is what we want. Oh my goodness, the aroma of this is absolutely amazing. And now we can toss in our leeks and our garlic. And again, we are just going to sweat these until they are soft and translucent. And let's add just a little bit of salt, because as we always do when we sweat vegetables, we add a little bit of salt to help draw out the moisture. So we will cook these for about 5 minutes. Everything should be soft. And then we will go to our next step. If you notice your pan getting a little dry, at this point, maybe you could just add a little bit of butter, because of course butter makes everything better, but it also serves as a very good lubricant for those vegetables to keep them from sticking, and imparts amazing flavor. So about another minute and we'll be ready to move to the next step. While our vegetables are sweating, we can go ahead and make our wet mixture. So we've got our eggs in our bowl. We'll add our milk and our cream. And let's just give those a nice whisk. Okay, and just a pinch or two of Espelette. It doesn't take much. And a little grating of nutmeg. Again, doesn't take much at all. And that's it for our filling.
Now it's time to add your fresh chopped herbs.
And I think our other part of our mixture is ready. So let's take a look. Yes, everything is nice and sweated. We are ready to go. Let's just add our lardons back into the mix. And this is our quiche filling all ready to go. So I'm just going to take this off the heat for just a second. We'll let it cool down just a little bit while we get our crust ready to fill. All right, we are ready to fill this quiche. So we will just place our filling on the bottom of the crust. Just like that. This is going to be a very meaty, very filling quiche. You know, this quiche has all the food groups that you need. It's a complete meal. We've got vegetables, we've got grain with the crust, we've got meat, and we've got dairy, which is coming up. We've reduced our oven temperature now to 190 centigrade or 375 Fahrenheit. And now Probably the easiest way to do this is just with a ladle. We'll spread our cheese around. And again, you could use, any cheese you want. Goat cheese is particularly wonderful with butternut squash, or no cheese at all. Our cheese is in, and now we will just place a few of our, I'm just going for some of the smaller leek slivers, I guess we'd call them. And into the oven. Now, if you're not sure-handed when you're placing things in the oven, you could always place your pie pan in the oven first, slide it out, and then continue filling it while it's sitting on the rack. That's a helpful little tidbit. So now we just let it cook for, depending on the depth of your quiche and the thickness of your crust, we're probably going to go for 35 to 45 minutes. We'll know that it's done when it's nice and brown and it's puffed up, and then we'll stick a toothpick in it, and when it comes out clean, that means it's ready to go. So the great thing about making a quiche is that really you can just do just about anything. Whatever you have left over. If you've got, a couple of cups full of some main ingredient like butternut squash or potatoes or even sweet potatoes or some vegetable, and then if you've got some milk and some cream and some eggs, you've got a quiche. You've got enough to make a quiche. And so the recipe that we're doing today is for butternut squash, lardons, and leeks, but it could just as well be for, sweet potatoes, ham or chicken, and onions and green peppers. It could be pepperoni pizza type quiche. So any ingredients you want. The main thing to remember is that in order to make the quiche be a quiche, it helps to have the milk, the cream, and the eggs. And of course, a pastry shell. Everything else is just icing on the top. It's been about 35 minutes, and I think that we are good to go. Oh my, look at that. It's just beautiful. And it's puffed up a little bit. And let's just stick a toothpick in it, right in the center. And if it comes back clean, that means it's done. Try another area. Yep. That bad boy is done and it's ready to go. So what we'll do now, and we'll put it on our cooling rack and we'll let it cool for probably 10 minutes, then we'll cut it. Okay, we are ready to go. Very nice. All right, we've got our butternut squash, bacon / lardons, and Leeks Quiche served on a nice bed of green pea puree, which you can find the video for that above, a little bit of reduced balsamic vinegar, and also a puree of butternut squash. We had a little bit of butternut squash left over, so we made a puree of that, which we've also done a video on, and just a little green salad with an oil and balsamic vinegar dressing. Let's give it a try. I'm just going to go straight in for the quiche. Let's see how it comes. Oh man. That is really, really tasty. And a little bit of relief from with the balsamic, reduced balsamic is fantastic. Green peas. Let's go for one more. taste here. A little bit of Lardons and the butternut. It is a great combination of flavors. And the great thing about a quiche is that you can have it, warm right from the oven. You can have it, the next day right from the refrigerator, cold. You can take it on a picnic. It just doesn't matter. It still tastes great either way you look at it. So I hope you'll give it a try and check out our videos for the green pea puree and the puree of butternut squash. Thank you guys again for joining us today. I hope that you liked the video. If you do, hit that like button right down below and then subscribe to our channel and share and tell your friends all about it.